If you sign this contract on the same day you tour a care home, you could end up paying tens of thousands of pounds more than you needed to. And almost nobody warns you about this before you pick up the pen. Welcome back to Pension and Benefits Guide. This is the channel where we cut through the confusing paperwork, the fine print, and the jargon around pensions, care costs, and family finances, so you can make decisions with confidence instead of guesswork. If that sounds useful to you, stick around, because today's topic could genuinely save your family a lot of money. Here's the situation. The day your parent or your spouse needs to move into residential care is one of the hardest days of your life. And almost always, that's the exact day someone puts a contract in front of you and asks you to sign. The care home might be lovely. The manager is probably kind. Nobody in that room is trying to take advantage of you. And yet, there you are, exhausted, relieved, and grateful, holding 12 pages of small print and a pen. You sign it, not because you're careless, but because you're human. You've had conversations in the weeks before that you never wanted to have, and now something has finally been sorted. The relief is enormous. And reading a contract properly is the very last thing you have energy for. After nearly 40 years working in tax and estate planning, and after sitting across from a lot of families at Citizens Advice once something in that contract had already become a problem, I've come to believe that care home contracts are some of the most important financial documents most people will ever sign. And almost nobody reads them properly first. There are 5 things hiding in that paperwork that can cost your family tens of thousands of pounds. They're not hidden in secret clauses. They are not illegal. They're right there on the page. They just never get explained on the day. So let's walk through exactly what to check. The first thing to look for is the fee review clause. It might be labeled differently: annual fee review, pricing policy, fee adjustment mechanism, but it's always in there somewhere. And what it actually says matters far more than most families realize, because care home fees are not fixed. They go up, usually every year. That's not a scandal, that's simply the reality of running a care home. The real question is what you've agreed to in writing about how much fees can rise, and with how much notice. Is the increase tied to something specific, like RPI, CPI, or a stated percentage? Or does it say something vague, like of in line with the provider's operating costs or at the provider's discretion? Those last 2 phrases are very different from the first 2. They can leave the home with almost no ceiling on future increases. Let's put real numbers on this. Say your parent moves into a nursing home at £1,200 a week. That's over £62,000 a year. If fee increases average 3% annually, by year 5 you're paying around £1,390 a week. But if the clause allows 7%, which a purely discretionary clause can easily reach, you're looking at around £1,680 a week by year 5. Over those 5 years, the gap between those 2 scenarios is worth more than £25,000. That clause that felt like small print on signing day can quietly become one of the most expensive sentences in the whole document. Before you sign anything, ask to see the specific fee clause, and ask what the actual percentage increase has been over each of the last 3 years. That question moves the conversation from theory to reality. Now here's the second thing, and in my experience this one causes more confusion than almost anything else. When a local authority contributes to someone's care, it pays what it considers a reasonable rate for the area. Most care homes charge more than that rate. That difference is called a top-up, and someone has to pay it, usually a family member. Here's what most people don't realize: signing a top-up agreement isn't a formality. It's a personal, legally binding financial commitment for as long as your relative stays in that care home. Under the Care Act 2014, it's the family member who pays the top-up, not the resident's own remaining savings. And the agreement should technically be with the local authority, not just the care home. So before you sign anything, ask clearly: is there a top-up involved? Who exactly do we sign that agreement with? And what happens if the top-up can't be paid? Because if it stops, the council may need to arrange a different placement altogether, and that could mean your relative having to move. If you're finding this helpful so far, do me a quick favor. Hit like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and drop a comment letting me know if you've dealt with any of this yourself. It genuinely helps other families find this information when they need it most. Now, the third thing feels a little uncomfortable to bring up, but it matters. Check what the contract says about what happens after a resident passes away. Most contracts require fees to continue for a period afterward, often 28 days, and that clock usually starts from the date of death, not from when you notify the home. Some contracts also require the room to be cleared within a short window, sometimes as little as 48 or 72 hours. None of this is illegal, the home still has real costs. But it's much easier to handle if you already knew about it, rather than discovering it during one of the hardest weeks of your life. But here's where the real impact becomes clear. Most families have never even heard of NHS Continuing Health Care, or CHC. This is fully funded NHS care for adults whose health needs have become the main factor driving their care. If someone qualifies, the NHS covers everything: nursing, personal care, accommodation, all of it, regardless of savings or property. Over 2 or 3 years, a successful assessment could be the difference between an estate being preserved or completely used up. The catch is that a referral has to be requested. Care homes aren't required to initiate one. So it's worth simply asking, has an assessment been done, and if not, can one be requested? And then there's the piece that surprises almost every family. In England, capital above £23,250 means you're a self-funder. Below £14,250, the local authority funds care, though you still contribute from income. In between, it's a sliding scale. Scotland and Wales each set their own rules. The real shock comes at the transition point. When the council takes over funding, it pays its own contracted rate, which is often lower than what the home charges self-funders. If nobody can cover that gap, your relative may need to move to a different home, at the point they're most settled and most vulnerable to disruption. That's why it's worth contacting the local authority's adult social care department well before savings run low, not right at the threshold. And finally, the family home. When someone first moves into permanent care, the property is disregarded from the means test for the first 12 weeks, giving families time to plan. If a spouse or certain dependents remain living there afterward, that disregard can continue indefinitely. But if the property sits empty after those 12 weeks, it becomes part of the means test and may need to be sold. If you're not ready to sell, the council is required under the Care Act 2014 to offer a deferred payment agreement, where the cost of care is secured against the property and repaid later. It's a legal right, but you have to ask for it, ideally before you sign the original contract. So here's the honest recap. Check the fee review clause. Understand the top-up agreement for what it really is. Know what happens with fees after a death. Ask about an NHS Continuing Health Care assessment. And if savings are approaching the threshold, contact the council early and know your rights around the family home. None of this means walking away from a good care home. It simply means taking the contract home first, reading it with a cup of tea, and asking the right questions before the pen comes out. I'd love to know, has anything like this happened in your family, or did you know about all 5 of these before watching? Tell me in the comments, those stories genuinely help other people going through the same thing. And if you found this useful, our next video breaks down even more entitlements families miss, so make sure you check that out next. Thanks for watching, and take care of yourselves and each other.